learners. Today we are going to begin with another poem in your class 9 NCERT book called Rain on the Roof, written by Coach Kenney. Now, before we begin with the poem itself, I want you to look at these 4 pictures that are right now on your screen. I want you to pause the video right here, focus on them, think about the word rain and come up with 3 things. First thing is any person that these pictures that the word rain reminds you of. Second thing, think of a place that rain reminds you of. And third thing is think of any one event in your life that is associated with the word rain, that is associated with your memory of rain anytime in your life, right? Pause the video right here and think about these 3 things. Alright, let's move ahead. Let me introduce the poet Coach Kenney to you. He was born on November 24, 1826 and he died on January 25, 1904. Coach Kenney was an American poet, a journalist and a politician. Rain on the Roof is his most popular verse. Now, let me introduce the poem to you. Let me tell you some basics about this poem. The poet explores his feelings when he sees the rain falling on the roof. So, the poet is in his room. He is looking at the rain falling, right, on the roof, and he is exploring, he is thinking a lot about how rain is affecting him, affecting his emotions, right? Its sound evokes various emotions in his heart. So there's a particular sound that the rain is producing on the roof, and that sound evokes means brings forward, creates, starts, leads to various emotions in his heart. The rain reminds him of his mother. So towards the end of the poem, the rain takes him down the memory lane and he goes back to his childhood. It reminds him of his mother. It is seen as therapeutic as it touches his soul. What do we mean by therapeutic? Therapeutic is related to the word therapy. So anything which is a cure, which is a therapy for something, is called therapeutic. So rain is like a therapy for calmness. It brings about a calmness in his heart. It touches his soul. The music of the rain evokes a lot of emotions in the poet's heart as he is lying down in his room on his bed and listening to the rain. Right? Let's move on to the poem. It's right there on your screen. You can pause the video right here and read it for yourself, or you can read it along with me, right? When the humid shadows hover over all the starry spheres and the melancholy darkness gently weeps in rainy tears, what a bliss to press the pillow of a cottage chamber bed and to listen to the patter of the soft rain overhead. Every tinkle on the shingles has an echo in the heart, and 1,000 dreamy fancies into busy being start, and 1,000 recollections weave the air threads into woof as I listen to the patter of the rain upon the roof. Now in memory comes my mother, as she used in years agone to regard the darling dreamers ere she left them till the dawn. Oh, I see her leaning over me as I listen to this refrain, which is played upon the shingles by the patter of the rain. So let me tell you one fun fact. This is only half the actual poem written by Coach Kenney. In your syllabus, NCERT has prescribed only the first half of the poem. Now that we've read the poem, let's analyze the poem stanza wise. This is stanza 1. When the humid shadows hover over all the starry spheres and the melancholy darkness gently weeps in rainy tears, what a bliss to press the pillow of a cottage chamber bed and to listen to the patter of the soft rain overhead. Let's look at line number 1 and 2. Humid shadows means, here it means dark clouds filled with water. Humid means wet with water, and shadows here refers to the clouds. Then there's another a phrase called starry spheres. So starry spheres refers to the night sky which is filled with stars. So the night sky seems like it is studded with starry spheres. Hover means to float over or to linger over, right? The dark clouds are heavy with water and they float over the star-studded sky. So obviously we are talking about rain, we are talking about monsoon. So the dark clouds are heavy with rain and they are floating over the star-studded sky. It's night time, the clouds are roaming around, hovering over the poet's head. It looks as if they are about to pour rain. So they are very heavy. It looks as if they are going to rain. The word dark signifies the poet's mood and tells us about the clouds which are ready to bring about rain. So the word dark here is kind of symbolic. First, it refers to the darkness of the night. It also refers to the color of the clouds, which are dark because they are filled with water. But dark also signifies the poet's mood. The poet is not in a very light, very happy mood, so he's in a dark sort of a mood. It also refers to the kind of sad state of mind that the poet is in, right? These lines set a precedent, the tone of the poem. So in the beginning, the tone, the attitude of the poet towards the poem is a little sad, a little melancholic. It tells you something about the tone of the poem. Now let's move on to lines number 3 and 4. And the melancholy darkness gently weeps in rainy tears. Melancholy means sad, gently means softly, weeps, you already know it means cries, and rainy tears here means rain that looks like tears. So when the rain is falling, it looks like tears are falling from the sky. So it seems as if the darkness of the clouds signifies their sadness. So like I told you, the clouds are dark and they're filled with water. So it feels as if the clouds are crying, pouring down rain, and it looks like the clouds are crying. It also reflects upon the mood the poet is in. So like he is a little sad, the clouds are also depicted as being sad, right? This sadness is expressed in the form of rain. So the clouds are sad, and when they are sad, they pour down rain. It looks as if they are crying. The poet compares rain to tears shed by the dark, sad clouds in the sky. So the rain is falling just like tears in the sky. Let's move on to line number 5 and 6. What a bliss to press the pillow of a cottage chamber bed. This is very easy. It is a bliss. It is like a happiness. The poet feels a sense of bliss, sort of a very satisfied sort of a feeling he has when he presses the pillow. Presses the pillow means puts his head on the pillow of a cottage chamber bed. Cottage means a small house. Chamber means a room. So there's a small hut in which there's a room and there's a pillow there. The poet gently lies down on the pillow. The poet feels happy as he puts his head on the pillow. He's lying on his bed in his room. The poet's mood changes from melancholic to blissful. So he was feeling melancholic, he was feeling sad in the last 4 lines. Now his mood has changed a little bit and he is feeling blissful. And to listen to the patter of the soft rain overhead. So patter means it's like, when you tap softly over anything, that's called that sound is called patter, a soft repeated sound of rain. So when the rain is falling over the roof, it is creating a patting sound, right? So with his head on the pillow, he feels happy as he listens to the soft sound of rain falling on the roof. So the rain is falling on the roof, it is producing a soft repetitive sound, pat 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 pat, something like that. So he's feeling blissful, he's feeling satisfied, he's feeling a little happy listening to that sound. The rain, described previously as tears, is now the source of mild music. So rain in the last 4 lines, in the first 4 lines, were described as tears, as something sad. But now rain is described as the source of mild music. Rain is producing mild music. The poet is now enjoying the music of the rain and appreciating nature. So now he is enjoying the music of the rain, right? Now let's move on to stanza number 2. Every tinkle on the shingles has an echo in the heart. Tinkle means a light bell-like sound. So like a bell produces a sound, the rain is also producing a tinkling sound because it is hitting on the shingles on the roof. Now let me tell you what a shingle is. A shingle is a thin piece used in roof. It could be made from any sort of material. You can look at the picture here. This is what a shingle looks like, right? So every tinkle on the shingles has an echo in the heart. It means that the rain is falling on the roof on these shingles and creating a tinkling sound, like a bell-like sound. These sounds are resonated in his heart like an echo. So these sounds are hitting deep into his heart and they are resonated. These sounds keep on repeating themselves like an echo. Now let's move on to the next 2 lines. And 1,000 dreamy fancies into busy being start. Fancies means imaginative scenarios. So the poet is experiencing 1,000 dreamy scenarios, fancy scenarios, imaginative scenes, right? As the sound of the rain creates an echo in his heart, the poet starts dreaming of various fanciful imaginative scenarios. The rain takes him from the real world to an imaginative world. So the rain is creating a tinkling sound, a pitter patter on the roof, and that music is something that excites the poet, and it is something that takes him to a dreamy world. Now he's thinking about other things, and 1,000 recollections weave their air threads into woof. Recollections means the act of recalling the memories, right? So he has a lot of memories associated with rain. I'm sure in the first activity you must have thought that one memory that comes to your mind whenever you think about the word rain. Similarly, the poet also has a lot of memories associated with rain. So he's thinking about all of those memories, he's recollecting all of those memories, right? Now woof means a set of yarns of fabric. I have put a picture for you to see. Look at the yarn. A collection of yarn, a set of yarn is called a woof, right? The poet's imagination start weaving multiple memories. So he's thinking of 1,000 imaginative scenarios while thinking about his memories. So his memories and his imaginations are kind of mixing together and creating a sort of a fabric, right? He's now traveling to his past, remembering the good times that he spent. So he's traveling to his past, thinking about all the memories that he has. His memories are like threads which he is putting together to make a yarn, to make a fabric, to make a cloth. There's a shift from reality to fancy, and then to his nostalgic past. So in the first stanza we saw that he is looking at the reality. Reality is the rain falling, the music, how it is impacting him. From there, from the reality, he moves on to fancy, because he is now putting in creating 1,000 scenarios in his mind which are just imaginary. So he moves from real world to the imaginary, and then to nostalgic past. Nostalgic means something that that is related with a lot of memories. Nostalgia is like a bittersweet feeling that you have about anything which is related to your past. So he's moving on to his past. As I listen to the patter of the rain upon the roof. So the poet gets lost in the memories of his past while listening to the sound of rain as it falls on the roof. You must have noticed that the poet is repeating the line, the sound of the roof. Right? Let's move on to stanza number 3, lines 17 and 18. Now in memory comes my mother as she used in years agone. Agone means ago. This is another word which is used to say ago. So the poet is now remembering his mother. He is thinking about his past, and of course, whenever you think about anything in your past, there are some people that appear. So the rain makes him think of his mother. He's remembering her exactly like she was ago. So because his mother comes into his memory, look at the lines. Now in memory comes my mother as she used in years agone. So as she used to be in years that are now past, she comes into his memories exactly like that. To regard the darling dreamers ere she left them till the dawn. So ere is a short form of the word before, and dawn means morning. So the poet remembers his mother as she looked at him as he slept. So he used to sleep till the morning, till late in the morning, and the mother was so sweet. His mother was so sweet, she kept on looking at him. She did not wake him or disturb him, right? She considered him to be a darling, and she let him sleep till daybreak. So the mother thought of him as a darling, and she left him till the dawn. She left him sleeping. She did not wake him at all in the morning, right? Oh, I see her leaning over me as I list to this refrain. OER is the short form of over, right? List means list is another short form for listen. Refrain is the repetitive part of a verse, generally at the end. So there are some lines, even in songs you must have heard some lines which are repeated again and again to make the music more interesting, to make the song more interesting. Similarly, in a poem, in a verse, there are some lines which are repeated, right? That is called the refrain, the hook of any music, the hook of any poem, right? So the poet remembers her as she leaned over him. So the poet remembers as she leaned over means as she bent over him, and when she loved him so much, he remembers that. He says that the repetitive song of the rain is reminding him of his mother. So the refrain refers to the sound, the repetitive music that the rain is creating. It's like a refrain of a song. As I listen to this refrain, I see her leaning over me. I remember how she leaned over me, right? The song of the rain is now reminding him of his mother. Till the previous lines, it was reminding him of his memories, and before that it was taking him to an imaginative land, right, which is played upon the shingles by the patter of the rain. Now again he is repeating the line. This song is played upon the shingles of the roof by the rain. So he just said refrain, right? So the refrain is the music of the rain, and the song is obviously the rain song, and there's a refrain to it which keeps on repeating itself. This song is played upon the shingles by who? By the roof. So roof hitting on the shingles is creating a song in which there's a refrain, there's a repetitive part, right? Okay, now that we've discussed all the stanzas of the poem, let's move on to the poetic devices. But before moving on to the poetic devices, let's discuss what poetic devices actually are. Poetic devices are the literary techniques or devices used by the poets to create rhyme, enhance the meaning, or to intensify a mood or feeling of a poem. So these are little techniques used by the poets either to create a sort of a rhyme, to make it more interesting, or to intensify a meaning. Whenever a poet wants to emphasize on a meaning, they use a poetic device to do that, right? It also enhances the mood or feeling of a poem. A poem becomes more effective whenever a poetic device is used. Now let's move on to the rhyme scheme. Now rhyme scheme is not a poetic device, it is part of the diction, right? A diction is the way in which words are used or put together in a poem by the poet. It's the ordered pattern of the rhymes at the end of the lines of the poem, right? You have the 3 stanzas here. Let's discuss the rhyme scheme. Look at the first stanza. Okay, now let's look at the words at the end of each of these lines, right? Let's start with the first stanza. Hover doesn't rhyme with any other word, so we'll code it as A. Spheres and tears rhymes, so we'll code it as BB. Darkness doesn't rhyme with anything, so we'll code it as C. Pillow doesn't rhyme with anything, so we'll move to the next letter, which is D. Bed rhymes with overhead, ed, bed, so we'll code it as EE. And patter could be coded as F. So the rhyme scheme becomes A, B, C, B, D, E, F, E, right? Similarly, in the next stanza, shingles doesn't rhyme with any other word, so A. Heart, start, clearly they're rhyming, so B, B. Fancies doesn't rhyme with anything, so C. Recollections doesn't rhyme with anything, so D. Woof, roof, roof, woof, so E, E. And patter can be coded as F, right? Now let's move on to the third stanza. Mother doesn't rhyme with anything, any other word, so A. Gone and dawn, BB. Dreamers doesn't rhyme with any other word, so C. Me doesn't rhyme with anything, so D. Refrain, rain, in, the sound in, so E. And shingles doesn't rhyme with anything, so F. A, B, C, B, D, E, F, E. This is the rhyming scheme, and the rhyme scheme is same throughout the poem. In all the 3 stanzas, the rhyme scheme is the same. Now let's start discussing the poetic devices in the poem. Let's look at alliteration first. Alliteration is the repetition of same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. So either a letter is repeated or a sound is repeated in some closely connected words, right? Let's discuss some examples, then you'll be able to understand it better. Look at the first line, humid, hover. So her sound is being repeated in closely connected words. That's why we said that this is an example of alliteration. Now let's look at the second line, starry spheres. So the S sound is being repeated over here, right? Look at the fifth line, press the pillow. So the P sound is repeated here, or the letter P is repeated here. There's one more example in the same stanza. Look at the next line, cottage chamber. So the letter C is repeated here. All of these are examples of alliteration, right? Let's move on to the next poetic device, which is called personification. Now, personification is attributing human qualities to inanimate objects. So, for example, if you say that the river was dancing, so you don't actually mean that a river can dance, but you are attributing a human quality, a human capability such as dancing to something like a river, right? Something that cannot actually dance, something inanimate like a river. Now there are two examples. The first is melancholy darkness. Now darkness is not something that can be melancholy, that can be sad. So you are attributing a human quality or a capability to something like darkness. And 1,000 recollections weave their air threads into woof. So weaving is one such quality which is not possible in terms of which is not possible to be done by something inanimate. But here the poet says it, therefore we say that this is an example of personification. Now let's come to the next poetic device, which is called repetition. Repetition, like the word says, it's the repeating of same words or phrases a few times to make an idea clearer and more memorable. So the poets generally use repetition to enhance, to emphasize on something that they are trying to say in their poems, right? Let's look at the second last line in the first stanza, and to listen to the patter, right? And look at the second last line in the next stanza, as I listen to the patter. So listening to the patter is a phrase which is repeated twice in the poem to emphasize on the fact that the poet is closely listening to the patter, the patting sound of the sound of the rain, right? Let's come to the next poetic device. This is very important, and it's called imagery, and it's very commonly used also. This is used of descriptive and vivid language that creates a mental picture in the reader's mind. So the most important aspect of using an imagery is a mental picture in the reader's mind. It could be an auditory imagery, something which has to do with words which evoke a sense of sound in your head, or it could be a visual imagery. It could create a mental picture in your head, right? Let's discuss the examples here. Line number 2, starry spheres. So this phrase creates a mental picture in your head of a star studded sky, a night sky, which looks very beautiful, right? So this is a very good use of visual imagery by the poet. Let's look at the next line, melancholy darkness. So it creates a picture of darkness which brings about a sense of sadness in the poet's heart. So this could be another example of imagery. And let's look at the next line, rainy tears. So an image of raindrops falling, and it looks like the sky is crying. So this is another example of imagery. Let's come to the next poetic device, which is called onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is the use of words that denote real life sounds. So whenever you use a word which sounds like the sound it is depicting, that's called onomatopoeia. So for example, if you are talking about a dog and if you say woof, so if you use the word woof, it says that it shows that you're using the poetic device onomatopoeia, because you're actually referring to the sound woof woof created by a dog, and you're using the word woof itself, right? So in our poem we have two examples. First is patter, the second is tinkle. Both of these words also sound like that. So when rain falls, it sounds like pat 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 pat, and the word that the poet has used is patter. And tinkling is another word which depicts a sound, and the poet has used it as a word here. Okay, let's move on to the next part, which is the major theme. Now there are two major themes in the poem. The first is rain and its calming effect. Like I already told you, that rain is seen as therapeutic. The poet feels sad looking at the rain, looking at the dark clouds, the dark sky. However, rain works as something which kind of has a calming effect on him. It cures his mind. The soft music of rain echoes in his heart, and he starts to become a little happy, right, as he lies down on his pillow. The second theme is nostalgia. This is carried throughout the poem because the rain reminds him of his mother, the rain reminds him of the beautiful memories that he has, the rain takes him to his past. That's why we say that nostalgia is one of the themes that is explored in this poem. Now let's discuss the tone that the poet takes. Tone is the attitude of the poet towards the subject matter about which the poem is, right? So the tone is the poet's attitude, and how is it expressed? It's expressed in obviously the words with which the poet has compose the poem, the words that they have used, the poetic devices that they have employed in the poem. Let's look at the 4 words that describe the tone of this poem. The first word is pensive. Now pensive means thoughtful. So the poet is extremely thoughtful because he goes to an imaginary place, he thinks of a lot of scenarios, a lot of imaginary things that doesn't actually happen, but he's thinking about all of those things. So he's kind of pensive, he's thoughtful, he's thinking about all of these things, and the rain is forcing him to think about these things, right? The second tone is melancholic. In the beginning of the poem, there is a sadness that is conveyed through the symbols that the poet has used. So the poet's tone is melancholic in the first half. He's humble and he's preoccupied. His mind is totally busy. Preoccupied means he's completely busy thinking about the rain. He's busy in the music of the rain, listening to it, and which takes him to down his memory lane, takes him back to his mother and her memories. So these are the words that could be used to describe the tone of the poet. So that's that. Thank you so much.